Do you guys ever find yourself fighting or arguing or disagreeing with the person you absolutely love the most in this world, but you find yourself behaving in a way that you really don't like? Maybe you're mean, or you get really angry really quickly out of nowhere. Or perhaps you've done this before. You shut down into your emotional turtle shell and you give the other person you really love the cold shoulder. Well, I got some news for you. This way of behaving is not your fault. You learn this behavior because all behavior is learned behavior. You learn this in your early childhood from your parents. But I'm also here to tell you it's not your parents' fault either. Well, if you're like me and you struggle with this in your relationships before in the past, or you're going through it right now, you're going to want to watch this video all the way to the end because I'm going to show you not only where this divisive energy comes from, but what you can do to stack the deck in your favor and permanently remove this from your relationship. But before we get into it, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, which lets me know that this video is valuable to you. I'm going to teach you 10 things you can do right now to stack the deck in your favor against this divisive divide and conquer energy. But before we do that, I really want you to understand where this divisive energy comes from and how it enters your life and your relationship. So what exactly is divisive energy? Well, divisive energy is the essence and attributes of the devil, or the opposite of divine energy. Now, divine energy has its own characteristics and its own essence, and I'm going to write them out for you side by side so you can understand and have a clear picture of the differences and how they work. Let's start with divisive energy. Now, I have a list of some of the most common popular emotions and vibrations that divisive energy, the devil, likes to use to come through into your relationships. Now, I want to be really, really clear. So, for example, this first one is anger, which is a really big one, popular one that the devil uses. I'm not saying that anger or blame is 100% always that. Well, blame is. But anger can only happen when a part of you doesn't get its needs met. So it's okay to be, there's a connected anger and a disconnected anger. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to talk about the main ones to look out for. So the first one is anger. Now, anger, like I said, only happens when a part of you doesn't get its needs met. So you really have to watch out for that, because it is okay to feel anger. It's okay to not get your needs met, but then you want to really recognize what is your needs that isn't getting met, and then what are you going to do to work towards that? That's really the goal, and that's the reason why anger comes up in the first place. Blaming somebody else always happens through the ego. It's not a natural thing to blame. It's a normal thing, but it's not a natural thing to blame. So blame is one you really want to check off your list, and you don't want to be able to do that, because it's going to have a lot of issues down the long run. Closed off, shut down, contracted. When you're contracted, you push that divine presence really, really far away. So you really want to stay open and expanded, even if it doesn't feel great. That's why you want to work on this and have resources for you to do that within these videos. Confusion, that's a really big one. Anytime you experience confusion, it's because you don't understand something, but confusion by itself is a vibration that, unchecked or not connected to the divine, will cause divisive energy. So what I recommend if you have confusion is ask for clarity. Fear, it's probably the number one. I didn't put these in order specifically, it's just alphabetical order to make it look pretty and really good for you visually to see, but fear is probably the number one. And that's the number one that divisive energy comes through, because generally the majority of people, once they're underdeveloped, once they experience fear, they push the divine far away in outer space, which means the devil has free reign to come around through and inside that person, take over, do behaviors and things that you wouldn't normally do, because your resistance to fear, or your fear of fear. So that's something that needs to be connected. Frustration is another one. Frustration only happens when something's not happening the way you want it to happen. So if you quickly identify what is it that I want to happen and what am I doing to get that to happen, and do something different, because it is not going to work if you keep doing the same thing over and over again. Guilt, it's a really big one. People that have guilt, usually there's some heaviness to it. Guilt isn't close to God. Guilt isn't close to the divine. Guilt isn't something that's a positive attribute. It's always a negative thing. And it always has God far away, or source, or infinite intelligence. And the opposition, which is the divisiveness, is really, really close. If you surround that guilt with that, let's say, golden light, with that divine energy, and actually go inside of it, the guilt won't stay guilty for much longer. It actually will connect. Hurt, this is a big one. A lot of people, they don't understand what their hurt is, where it comes from, and what to do about it. So this is a really, really big one. Laziness. Laziness is definitely one that divisive energy comes through, because it blocks you from going after your dreams, fulfilling your purpose, being the real man, the real woman, stepping up, like providing, protecting your family, taking care of yourself, your loved ones, and doing what you're here to do. That's another one to look out for. Sadness, again, I said it with anger, I'll say it with sadness. Sadness doesn't always equal divisive. However, the majority of time, for the majority of people, this is the case, because when they're sad, anyone who feels sad, they feel like they lost something. That's what sadness 100% comes from. But if you feel like you've lost something and you're not connecting to that source, that's when the divisive energy comes through. We have shame. That's another one too. Shame is kind of similar to guilt, but a little bit different. But shame is like a little bit generally heavier, or it's more all-encompassing. It's more of an identity level. So we really want to connect that one. And then being a victim. Being a victim is at effect, not at cause, and there's always going to lead to issues. So these are the big ones that the divisive energy comes through. Again, it's not an all-encompassing list. There's other ones. These are just the ones that I see mostly from my clients. These are the ones that I work with on a day-to-day basis with the couples and entrepreneurs that I focus on. Now let's go over to the divine side and look at some of these characteristics and essence of the divine energy, which is the opposite of this. We have authenticity. I want to kind of jump to integrity. Inner integrity is the ability to see what's happening inside of you. Authenticity is the ability to share your inner truth without filter, judgment, or trying to downsize it at all. So authenticity is sharing your inner truth, not ego or head's inner truth, but your neo, your true self's inner truth. Awareness. Awareness itself is the divine presence. There's a saying that God and awareness are one and the same. Consciousness and awareness are one and the same. So the awareness itself, being able to see what's actually happening in the moment inside, it can only happen if the divine presence is close. Clarity, the opposite of confusion. Clarity is of the divine. It's an attribute, it's an asset. It's a benefit when the divine's close. There is clarity. There's no fogginess. It's like anytime you ever feel the mental fog, if you can visually grab the sun and put it really close to you, it would actually burn off that fog. So we have curiosity. Instead of the confusion, instead of the frustration, there's actually curiosity. You want to learn more. You want to understand what's actually happening. You become more curious to find out what the solution is, what the answer is, what's the better strategy. Gratitude. Gratitude is the highest state of consciousness that we can actually be in. Gratitude is extremely important, but it only can be possible if the divine presence is close. Innocence. We're all born with innocence, but we tend to lose our innocence through hurt, through a lot of these things. Where does innocence get lost from? Hurt, shame, trauma, right? Fear. The issue is, if we lose our innocence, we lose our connection to the source. So it's really, really important to heal these things so we can actually live this way, which is our natural state. This can be very normal on the left. This red over here can be very normal, but the blue is very natural. Normal and natural are not the same thing. Integrity. Integrity, there's inner integrity, which is seeing your inner truth, accepting your inner truth in that moment. But there's also external integrity. External integrity is really doing what you say, following through. Discipline's a really big part of that too. Openness, the opposite of turtle shelling, of closing down, of contracting. Openness is really, really important, because if you're open consciously to light, to solutions, you actually can move forward in life. Peace. Peace is such an important one. Peace is an essence, an attribute. It's a sign that tells you that the divine presence is close. Safety. Safety is just a normal happening when you feel at ease. You feel safe because you're protected. But safety doesn't necessarily mean what's in the culture now is like safe places, meaning like let's bubble wrap and helmets and arm floaties the world. That's not what I'm talking about safety. I'm talking about safety is safe in every situation, even dangerous situations. The safety is through connected to the source in every situation. You're safe because your soul is safe. You're going to be good no matter what. Your body is finite, but your soul is infinite. Then we have the last two, unconditional acceptance. Unconditional acceptance is a characteristic when the divine presence is close. It means no matter what's happening, there's an acceptance of what's happening. I accept what is happening as is. It doesn't mean I agree with everything. It doesn't mean I want everything to happen, but I accept that this is happening. It just cuts down so much suffering, so much resistance. Just having the divine presence close is the only way it's possible to unconditionally accept. And then there's unconditional love. I didn't write pleasure on this list. Pleasure and love aren't the same thing. A lot of people confuse that, especially their egos. Pleasure is conditional. People call it conditional love. It means you have to do something, say something, something has to happen in order to feel the love, which isn't love at all, it's pleasure. Unconditional love is only possible when the divine presence is present and close. So this is unconditional love that's way bigger than all the humanity combined could ever do. This is just a list for you to understand where the divisive energy likes to come through, and this is what happens when the divine energy is close. I'm going to get into how this can happen and how this can happen in your relationship now that we understand the what. Divisive energy can only be present when the divine presence is far away. Divisive energy can only come through your ego within your head. Divisive energy can only come through disconnected parts of your ego from your past. Divisive energy likes to target, hurt, take advantage of, and damage your youngest, weakest, most traumatized, vulnerable, innocent parts of yourself. And divisive energy will automatically come through your unconsciousness. Now, the divine presence can only be present when you are consciously calling upon it and focusing on it. The divine presence can only come through your neo, your true self, within your heart center. Divine presence can only come through the connected parts of your neo in the present moment. The divine presence likes to surround, protect, nurture, and guide your youngest, weakest, most vulnerable, most traumatized parts of yourself. One likes to break it down, and the other likes to build it up. The divine presence will manually come through your consciousness. You can see how these are quite the opposite, aren't they? Now that you have a clear understanding of what divisive energy is and what divine energy is and how they are completely different, head over to part 2 of this video now, and I'll explain to you exactly what happens inside of you when you're triggered and how you can permanently stop it right now.